Gary.
Hi,
We have my
Gary.
rock star Jody in my office.
We
I see.
do. For those of you who don't know, Jody, you head up new development over at Corcoran, correct?
So I am the executive vice president of new development at Corcoran, which oversees a luxury rental and condominium portfolio, and then a senior managing director at Corcoran Sunshine.
Nice. What are you seeing if you were to compare right now to this time last year?
So we've definitely seen improvement in the market, I think across all price points. Um, there were some really important introductions in the new development space last year with 520 Fifth Avenue being one of them. But we've seen these buyers that have been on the fence actually get back in the market and are very focused on transacting. So and for the product that's over 5 million, even the product that's over 8 million, a lot of those transactions are people that have been coming back over the past 12 months. So, we do see some new people jumping in the market that are looking to make a decision, but I think the messaging behind this discussion would be a little bit of how important that follow-up is and staying in touch with those buyers that are really trying to understand if it's the right time, and they've been paying attention and watching to what's happening over the market for the past 12 months. And now we're seeing them make some decisions. And in this situation, have even lost the opportunity to buy maybe their first choice, but really want to be in a certain building and location, and are realizing that as the inventory is starting to absorb, right, these standing inventory is starting to absorb, that it's kind of now the time, if you want to jump in, to really start to explore making a decision moving forward with a purchase. And we've seen that happen across all price points in the portfolio.
Gary, I mean, obviously you're sort of at the same end of it, but anything that you want to kind of add to that of what Jody's saying?
So I just think there's optimism back in the marketplace, right, which fuels transactions. I think since October of last year, we've seen a lot of strong interest in the sales market again, more than we've seen for quite some time. I think the election's behind us, good, bad, or indifferent, depending on your vantage point. But more importantly, the fact that interest rates are what they're going to be, and people have gotten to the point where they understand that, whether they like it or not. I understand that they'd like it to be lower. But at a certain point in life, you need to move forward. You need to move to a different location. You want to downsize. You want to upsize. You just want something different than you currently have. And I think at this point, people have just gotten to the point like now's the time to act. And it's nice to see. And, Jody and team and Cork and Sunshine and Cork and New Development, we're just seeing a lot of healthy activity. So it's great news to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing that too. I'm curious, Jody, so you guys have the benefit, you have the rental and you have the buy side. Do you notice your tenants, are they coming in, are they becoming your buyers now in the new dev side of things?
There's definitely a significant increase in the renter that is in a private residence that is paying a very high rent, that has been on the sidelines for a little bit and have decided now's the time to purchase. We've even seen some of that happen in the existing buildings that we're selling, where they may be renting from a private owner and have decided, actually, we've had 3 of those happen in the last 60 days. So there's definitely a moment in time that I think when somebody has maybe even over the years wasn't sure about a location, wasn't sure if they were going to be able to settle into a certain area in the city, are renting in that location, kind of really put down their roots. They're comfortable. They've got their routines. I think that has been very successful in helping us move those renters into buyers where they're already within the property. But we're also seeing a lot of those renters that are coming out of these very, very high-end rentals and large residences. And during the past probably 3 to 5 years, that the quality of that renter has really changed, and they are absolutely buyers in the market, but had decided maybe that they wanted to take a pause, see what was happening across the city, focus on the interest rates. Even at the $5 to $7 million price point, we're seeing more mortgages, where they are now starting to think about, like, it makes more sense for us to make a purchase, or we want some security in where we're living, and we don't want to be in a situation where we're renting from a private owner that may not renew our lease or may decide now that they're going to sell as inventory is absorbing. So we're seeing more of those people absolutely jump into the for sale market and make some buying decisions. I think that goes back to the importance of staying in touch with these prospects that show interest, because as leases continue to move right through those annual kind of 6 months, 8 months, they start to consider what they're going to do next. So I think when you have somebody that is qualified and is showing continued interest, we're able to bring those people back in and get them to transact.
historically, new development, there's some concessions, depending, of course, how many units are available, whether it's that line or that size. Are your developers offering any incentives right now where they just don't need to?
So I think we've seen adjustments happening across the market to pricing over the past probably 24 months more significantly. And I think that those adjustments where the developers have adjusted to meet the market with their pricing, there's very little negotiability or incentive. So in a situation like Hudson Yards, you know, we're not negotiating on price at all. We're able to offer a transfer tax, not much more than that. It's a very strong position for the sales team to be in, and to help guide the brokers that are representing their buyers on where we're at based on the adjustments that have been made over time. I think the one thing that is important for us is to continue to educate the brokers on how the pricing has adjusted, right? Because I think the buyers tend to react to the last available public price and want to continue to push or negotiate from there. And there's a lot of buildings across the city that are positioned perfectly in the market today, and are offering an incredible value. And I think it's that education process that's been able to get people off the sidelines.
Gary, I know that you have something to add to that.
Listen, I think that the ultimate thing is like experience and knowledge are one thing, but having a team that are closers, a team that understands the business, has a great relationship and rapport with ownership, that's providing them with the information that they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear, are the sites that are doing really well. Because ultimately speaking, it's always a partnership, a collaboration, whatever the proper word is, between the on-site sales team and ownership. And when you have a team that's coming from a position of strength, that has a good working relationship with owners, that provides real data, it informs the seller, in this case the sponsor, to price their units accordingly. Not all units are created equal, not all locations are created equal, but when you have data and you have information, it drives deals. And I think having a team behind you like Jodi and everyone that she works with is an added value that just gets things moving and creates the expectation. And listen, every buyer wants to buy low, right? That's what they want. No one knows where the bottom of the market is until we're past the bottom of the market and it's on its upswing. So to me, it's always like, what are your reasons for moving? When do you need to move? Does this home residence suit your lifestyle? And if the answer is yes, trying to find every last nickel is, like Jodi said, all of a sudden the next someone came in and bought something that you wanted so much and you're going to regret it. So it's important to really also, whoever you're representing you on the buy side is equally as informed, because that'll make a transaction cleaner.
I think that is also such an important point to make when you've got these dedicated on-site teams, whether they're agents, whether they're on-site sales teams that are working for one sponsor at one building. They are there really to kind of guide, inform, provide information so that the brokers and the buyers can make good informed decisions. And most of the time, almost always, if those sales teams are coming back and saying that there is no negotiability, or we're not negotiating on price, or we're not paying transfer tax, that really is providing some information so that the broker and the buyer can go back and understand like what it's actually going to take to transact at a specific building. And it's different all over the city. So based on what you're looking for, the stage of where they're at in the sales cycle, what they have left, that experience is going to look and feel a little bit different. And I think that's what is so important for the brokers to understand when they're working with their buyers, that what they're experiencing from one building, what we see happen is they try to bring that forward and maybe apply it to a negotiation in something totally different, and they really are not aligned.
Just curious, and I don't think that the market's at this place now. Any developers offering financing from the developer, from the ownership?
I haven't come across that. I mean, I think there's been some programs to buy down rates, which honestly, at some of these higher price points, it doesn't even make sense.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for the developer, or really it's not that impactful for the buyer. So
Right.
we haven't really seen those programs, I don't think, take off.
Yeah, I don't think it needs it right now either.
That's right. We
There's not.
we are seeing more mortgages at these kind of higher price points, which is interesting, like 5 to 7 million. And, they may be only financing 50%, but there's definitely more of that happening in the marketplace probably over the last 6 months.
Well, from what I'm hearing from clients, on the higher end of it, they're able to borrow against their own money, not even take them, and then be able to get the rate down. So instead of paying 6.5, they might be getting something, in the fives, which is really gives them the ability to make money on it. So I am seeing that as well.
There's also always that education and that discussion around that you can refinance, right? So when somebody is they really want to make that purchase, I mean, the rate is the rate today, and we know that it is going to fluctuate. So there are probably opportunities if the rate improves to revisit your financing structure. So I think that's all part of that education process when you're trying to get, especially a first time buyer. I mean, I always laugh because I've worked all over the United States, but we talk about first time buyers in New York at $2 and $3 million. It's such big numbers, but still, it's an investment in real estate, and they're really trying to wrap their head around that total monthly expense.
Right. There are, and what's actually probably good on the new development side, there's generally speaking at least one of the commercial lenders that has that first time buyers product, where they're able to, throw in there, even if I know Citizens had it, I think they had it was like 10,000 off or whatever it was. But there's some stuff out there. What about what are any new developments that haven't even been built yet or first coming up that you have, in the horizon right now?
So there is a lot in the pipeline, I think, across the city, all different types of product that, we're working on across the portfolio. I think that we're going to see that happen in the next, really the stuff will be in the market for sale, probably looking like more like 12 to 18 months, it feels like, based on the timing that we need to be in the market. There's some great properties happening around the city that I think we're really excited about. Probably not the right time to announce what they are, but I think you're going to see product entering that like $2 to $5 million price point, which I think we've really absorbed a good amount of that across the city. I think that's an important introduction of for sale product that the new development, kind of world needs to look at. And then you've got some incredible towers that are, kind of planned and across the city that are going to continue to deliver that ultra luxury lifestyle as they continue to evolve.
Are these new ones that are going to be coming up in the next 18 months, are they with affordable housing or no tax credits?
No tax credits.
Gary, are you seeing, are any of the owners, do you see new things coming up at all in the horizon with an affordable housing component to it?
Yeah, I mean, Jody and I are going to be working on some very large office to resi conversions that are going to
Ooh,
have that component to it. I think that aspect of the rental side of the world is very exciting and intriguing because, as opposed to the call it somewhat standard building process for new developments, you're going to have a lot of conditions in these conversions. They're going to offer very unique opportunities for really different types of apartments and different amenities and size and scale. So I think in those areas, the answer is yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. The city's trying to do whatever it can do to entice people to do that. Unfortunately, some of the regulations that came down, like City of Yes, most renters, buildings that's like under 100 units on the new side, simply because the requirements of wages doesn't make it, financially affordable. So everyone's going to look to see what they can do, but I think on the larger scale projects, it's going to happen because it's going to need to happen. So I think you're going to see a lot of really exciting introductions in the rental side over the next few years, just because the office conversions are going to start to really accelerate, rapidly over the next 12 to 18 months.
And
yeah, that is interesting and exciting.
we are exploring, there are a couple of situations where we do have some condo that is in that planning and design stage that is looking at how they could potentially add additional FAR with the city of Yes. And there's not a clear understanding of what that means. And some of those discussions have been like, we may have to introduce some affordable for sale in a condo building. And what does that look like? And, how do you apply that program? And in some situations, it could be two affordable units that actually will give us, maybe enough FAR to create something special at the top of a more of a mid-rise building across the city. So we're in that kind of exploration period right now with a couple clients and trying to actually understand what can be built and what those ratios start to look like on the for sale side. It'll be the first time that I'm actually dealing with that on the condo side in the city.
And I imagine that there's going to be a tax abatement or something that's going to be presented that we don't even have yet.
Listen, the housing needs to be built, and it needs to be built in a way that developers can, afford to take on the risk. And the city has to understand it's a give and take between both sides of the equation. I think everyone's for affordable housing. Everyone wants to make sure there's affordable places for people to live. But at times, if you drive too hard of a bargain, you're not going to get the result that you're looking for. So, the office conversion stuff's great. I mean, way back in the day, the city habitats days, we did so many conversions down in the Wall Street area. It was like every other day we were feel like we were doing another building. And, I think we're going to enter into that phase of some of these obsolete old office buildings that people historically never would have considered for resi conversion. They will, and some will be, 300-400 units. Some will be over 1,000 units. And I think that's going to help bring housing to the city. And I think hopefully smarter heads prevail and they find ways to have a relationship on both sides. It's a win-win. I always tell people you don't need to walk away, killing every negotiation to feel like you've won. If everyone walks away a little bit unhappy/happy, then it's a win-win for everybody. So I think the city is trying. I think some of the things aren't going to work, and then they'll have to reimagine how to make it work.
I don't know how long it's going to last, but there's going to be a burst of it coming, I'm sure.
We're working on quite a few of them, and I'm so excited because number one, we can't have these empty city blocks across the city. Like we can't have these buildings sitting there vacant. I think it's so important that they're repurposed. There's so much waste in the new development business. So being able to like go at these from a design perspective where we can maybe try to repurpose what's there, make it meaningful, create great residential, have an important affordable component, and try to kind of navigate what they've put in place with these new programs, I think is critical. And some of the guys out there, such as a Nathan Berman with Metro Lofts and Van Barton, they've really kind of mastered the equation on how to approach them and make them meaningful. And if anybody had the opportunity to see any of the stuff that's new down in FIDI, 55 Broad, they just launched 25 Water. I mean, these are incredibly impressive buildings. And they've brought this important real estate back to life. So I'm really energized by the attention that the office to resi market is getting right now. I wish more of it worked as a condo. Most of it only works as a rental, but I think it's really an important part of the progression of the new development you're going to see happen over the next 3 to 5 years.
I wonder if this can happen, but there are so many older owners that are not, when I say older, I'm talking about just businesses that have been around for so long, whether it's the Durst or, any of the, lots of office space that's probably like C space at best right now and is 3/4 vacant. In those situations, it would seem that it would behoove everybody to not do something. And while they might not want to sell, why not do a lease on it? Go lease it for 150 years and let it go back to your family.
Listen, it all depends on the building, what zone it's in, what's feasible, what's not feasible, air and light. Not every building is ripe for conversion. There's very strong segments of the off-it market right now. The Class A stuff is done extraordinarily well. So now that that's being eaten up, the step below it will start to get more activity. But there's always going to be a segment of the office market that's probably not going to be highest and best use anymore. And if they can convert it because it's within a zone and it makes sense, I'm sure you'll see people doing it because in the end they'll drive really good prices.
The one thing I'll say is I think that we might actually be seeing things that while we think we haven't seen it before, we really have. So take Soho, for example. You can go into an apartment in Soho that is literally a 3 or 4 bedroom and it doesn't meet any light or air. It doesn't fall within that. And they've managed to get in there during the time of when they were doing these conversions and they were subject to either joint living work quarters or AIR. And, they just got in that way because they just, you have them where they're in the middle of buildings. They don't even have windows. And somehow, they get bought and sold. And I do think that we're going to see more of that happening as long as it's safe and fire, no fire issues. I think that, they'll have to. It's better than spending $80,000 per homeless person to be able to put them up somewhere. I mean, that's what it costs. That's what they're calculating that. I represent a ton of the affordable housing, market, and it's amazing to me. And now what's really nice, and you're probably going to see with your developers too, is it's not just the city stuff anymore. the private CPC is coming back in there and doing the loans with, giving the private money on it, and, still being able to do the participate in the programs. It's good. It's great that you're in it now, because I do think it's going to be, the entrance will stop soon. There's not that many of them on the, I don't want to say, maybe more luxury market that really has that. What is it? It's First Service, what is it, CNC, LWL. It's a good niche to get into.
Like, there's lots of opportunity. Everyone's investigating what's feasible, what's not feasible. And that's why you hire Jodi, right, Jodi? Because you're going to make it feasible.
Every building that we tackle is very interesting and challenging, and this whole process of the conversions has become such an education for myself and our team. And the key there is to move with speed and get them into construction as quickly as possible, understanding how do you approach the things like unit mix and depth of these floor plates and circulation and lifestyle, and how do you make that all work with the affordable components so you're delivering what the city needs on both sides. I really admire these developers that have jumped in very quickly, because it's important work that needs to happen, and not everybody can stomach it. I mean, it is a difficult process to move through, and as you'll see downtown, it's fun to walk some of the buildings that were done maybe over the past couple years, and then see the conversions evolve in just the way that they're using the space and the lifestyle they're creating within the apartments, and then within the lifestyle spaces of the amenities. The whole experience of those buildings, you forget that you're walking into what was an office building at one point in time, even as they're repurposing important components like a lobby or an elevator bank or things like that. So it's been amazing to be a part of that over the past 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be doing it in the office ones, but I know in general, these affordable housing developments, whether it's subject to an article, whether it's United Finance Agency or HPD or HDC, they do make these little communities within the building itself. They try to, which is actually really nice. Not whether it's having the store or having just the medical, they do try and do that. So it is really nice. What are you seeing in terms of the actual design development? If we were to say flashback, it's COVID, we all were, creating a certain way. Are we back to pre-COVID in terms of design?
I think we've learned a lot over that period. I think one of the things, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions, is this kind of hybrid work schedule that everybody is experiencing. And the reaction as we start these like early on sessions, these pre-development sessions, is people are working from home. They want a place for like a proper office or a desk. And that may be true, but just because the hybrid work schedules are here probably to stay in a lot of different industries, the doesn't mean that their income has changed much. So yes, we'd all want more space. I mean, we all want more space in New York City, right? But I think it becomes that affordability factor. So trying to be very meaningful with how we plan for those spaces within these apartments, I think, is something that is been a little bit more of a focus of ours, with where we're able to create space for furniture, but not necessarily create extra rooms that are just adding to the square footage and the overall rents. But understanding the importance of like health and wellness, and creating spaces that will give people the opportunity to like live better within their buildings. Communal spaces to create those kind of community environments, giving people co-working opportunities outside of their apartment. If two people are living together and somebody has to be on a call, like creating these Zoom rooms that are multi-purpose, but are like actually fun to be in, and places you could reserve for the day, and make sure that you've got a place to come and go and be able to conduct the meetings or calls that you have to do throughout the day. I think really being purposeful about what that experience is like within the building has been probably a lot more top of mind than it was, I think, pre-COVID. I mean, there was a big focus always on these amenities, but now we're saying like, what are the important amenities in these buildings? What are actually going to get used? What are things in apartments that people can't live without, or that they absolutely need? Furnishability, for instance, storage, things that are just, we take for granted, but can be very compromised as you're kind of moving very quickly through a pre-development process. So I think we're much more in tune to how these buildings feel from the minute you arrive to what your life is like within your apartment.
Are you expecting or taking into account a foreign market, or is that kind of, are you assuming that we're just doing much more domestically now?
I mean, I think there's a lot of people moving around and upgrading throughout the city. We're definitely seeing that. Right now, we still are seeing people that are looking for bedroom count. So somebody that would be looking for a 2, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom apartment, the Upper East Side rentals that can rent what they need in space, but probably couldn't purchase what they need in space. So there's that market in kind of pockets of the city that really needs some attention. And you're seeing that happen on the Upper East Side with the Duchess, which is one of the buildings we just launched recently. But I think across the city in general, I think that we want to be more meaningful with how people live their lives in these buildings. On the new development side, we tend to kind of get a little bit disconnected and we talk about everything in price per foot and absolute rents, but people are living their lives in these buildings and we really have a focus right now on trying to make that the best experience we can.
There's a bunch of buildings downtown. You were talking about FIDI, and prior to maybe 6 or 8 months ago, they were having a lot of problems. The buildings were not selling. There's a whole bunch of them. We all know what they are, but all of a sudden, I'm hearing that there are more deals going on there. What do you guys equate that transition to? We can't sell 77 Greenwich and to now we're doing deals. You know what I mean? Like, what is it that changed that brought more down there, do you think?
I mean, it's timing. People needed to transact. People needed to move forward. There's only so long in life you could stay in neutral. And I think at a certain point, life happens, and when that happens, you want to go outside, you want to look and see what's available, you want to see what suits your lifestyle, location wise, price wise, amenity wise. And I just think it's a reflection of what's going on in the overall market. We're seeing more transactions because people are more optimistic. People are ready to accept the rates where they are if you're financing and accept the circumstances that they are what they are. And you can only live in somewhere you don't want to live for so long. And I just think it's a sense of like, the time is now. And if prices have not really yet increased, if you get a lot of activity over the next 3, 4, 5 months, then you're all of a sudden going to think what you were saving, you're not going to save anymore. So it's back to the whole concept like you should make informed, intelligent decisions, of course, and you need to understand what your economic bandwidth is. But ultimately speaking, sitting on the sidelines for too long isn't healthy for you or anybody else, whether it's selling or buying. The simple fact is you want to move forward and get transactions moving at pace. And I think that's why you see it in the new development market. And obviously new developments are no construction, right? You're moving into something where you, the buyer, does not need to do work, most likely other than cosmetic work. And I think that's a very appealing thing in today's day and age. Not everyone wants to take on a construction project.
I've been writing off the older co-ops for a really long time now. And granted, they sell because that you can get the space, not the amenities, for a cheaper price.
Forgetting about whether you like or dislike the co-op process, let's just push that aside because there are people that want to live in co-op buildings because that suits their mentality. So if you're forgetting about the structure, you're talking about in many cases, a different type of product that is being built than today. So depending upon what your taste is, what kind of building you want to live in, depending on what location you want to live in, whether you love the co-op concept or not, it might be the only opportunity that actually meets or checks all of your boxes. So I think, you owe it to yourself always to go and look and see, but some people just, they can't handle it, right? They're not in the mood to be part of something that's that restrictive. Others love it being that restrictive. So I think it's really depending on who you are as a potential purchaser, how long do you plan on living there, and sort of what is your take? Is this something you're going to plan on living in permanently? Is it something you want to rent out? I mean, there's a lot of different decisions to make, but I think the inventory type definitely appeals to a certain subset of buyers where the new glass towers that other people just die over and love, it doesn't appeal to them. So it's like I always say, not all real estate's created equal, not people look at things differently. And I think that's the beautiful aspect of living in New York City. There's so many different ways you can live. It's just choosing the one that suits your personality best.
What do you think the developers are looking to do more of right now as we get into, 25 through 26 and then, next couple of years ahead? Is it going to be on are we looking to do the conversions from the co-op, from the rental buildings? Are they looking to just build more rental buildings? Or are we looking to do more co-op condo?
Economically speaking, if it pans out as a condo, there's condo builders. They'll never touch a rental building if their life depends on it, because that's just not their philosophy. Their philosophy is, build, buy, hold, whatever. And then there's rental developers who love the rental business and they're going to stay in the rental business. So I think everyone's looking for opportunities. I think have not been a lot of opportunities for people that they felt penned themselves out properly. The city of Yes is certainly trying to push things forward. The office to Resi is certainly pushing things forward. So I think depending on who you are and what your outlook is, I think people are looking at both sides. Right now, because there are a lot of opportunities on the office conversion, I think you're going to see, a very healthy amount of those converted. And if there's good deals for, condo developments, there will be, but those are a different economic risk.
I mean, Gary kind of hit on it, is getting the numbers to work. I mean, we look at deals. I mean, I probably look at a deal a day. It's been that active over the past, probably since, I would say, before Thanksgiving. There are people looking at every possible scenario, whether it's an assemblage or a conversion or ground up. It's trying to get the numbers to work. Assembling the air rights. How high can we go? What are the exposures? Is it the right neighborhood? The conversions, like I said, most of them don't pencil well for a condo at all, and they all are seeming to fall into the rental bucket. And it's well over 5,000 units, I think, that are already, in process, in the pipeline for the next, say, 24 months. And then, the condo product, I mean, we look at them both ways, almost always, unless it's somebody like that Gary had mentioned that truly just wants to buy the rental and hold it within the portfolio. It's very hard to make these deep floor plates be meaningful as a condo. And usually the office buildings are not in those neighborhoods that will translate to convincing somebody to purchase. I think there's a lot of flexibility when people are considering to rent. So I think that is also driving a lot of the decisions on where these condo buildings fall into the conversion space versus the rental inventory.
Good stuff. Well, I hope we'll get to have you on again, Jodi, and
Thank you for
Gary, of
inviting me.
course.
All right, guys. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great information.